Hello everybody, my name's Josh. I'd like to talk for a minute about the way that we view society, the way that we hope we can change society, and the way that we see today's society as being somehow different from other cultures or ancient governments. And through the years I've done my own research, and I've come up with my own conclusions about why we are where we are, how we got into this position, and whether or not we can ever get out of it, as far as our political affiliations, our discontent, our discomfort with one another and each other's views. But this is why we study history, folks. This is why we learn where we come from. This is why we want to know exactly how the problems we face came to be so we can deal with them properly. And if we can't find out where they came from, perhaps they are embedded within our DNA. Perhaps it's something inherent within mankind that we can do nothing about. I'd like to think that's not true. I'd like to think that we can deal with all of our problems, that we have the capacity to deal with all of our issues as humans without calling upon a higher being or dragging ourselves to lower standards. In other words, us solving our own problems instead of expecting someone else to do it for us. Now, I don't have any illusions of a perfect society where everyone gets along on every issue. I think that's a preposterous notion that we really need to overcome, because people desire conflict as part of their daily life. Not in a bad way, but as a way to move forward, a way to learn from our mistakes. Without making mistakes, you can't learn from your mistakes. Without creating wrong answers, all we can do is speculate on whether or not they're wrong. So rather than use this experimental society as a disadvantage, use it as an advantage to see where we can go with this, where we can take it. Do we have any hope? Now, I'm just one man. My strong point is I have the ability to do research. I find myself fairly intelligent, and I'm able to speak. So I find myself feeling obligated to do these things. Not for fame, not for finance, but because I feel like it's the right thing to do. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they've been aware since they were kids, they've been awake since they were kids. I don't know to what degree people are awake or aware as children. All I know is I had a normal childhood. I went and played with the other kids. I went and had fun. I got picked on. I picked on others. I had just a normal, average childhood, like most American kids. So I think this allowed me to develop an average mindset of a human in this nation. In other words, if there are children out there that were brought up knowing all the answers of the world, they've enough of a normal childhood in order to relate to those around them. We need to relate to people. We need to understand people and where they've come from. This is why we don't like it when rich people make decisions for the masses, because they don't understand what it's like to be poor. They don't understand what it's like to be in dire straits and to live paycheck to paycheck. We want people on our level. When I was about 15 or 16, I started getting this feeling that I had something important to give to the world. I didn't know what it was, and I still don't know what it was. I felt like I wanted to contribute to something, to a change. Most of all, I felt like in my lifetime there was going to be a major change of world events. I didn't know where this stemmed from. I didn't know where this root feeling came from. Maybe it came from the studies that I'd done. Maybe it came from the books I'd read. But either way, I remember walking up to a guy one time on Hawthorne when we were hanging out with all the hippies on the corner. And he was an older gentleman. I must have been about 16, 17, and he must have been probably in his late 30s, 40s. And we were talking about feelings about the world, and I explained to him how I felt like we were at a cross, that society was going to go through some major changes in my lifetime, and that I felt like I had a place in this, like a place on the front lines, as if I would be a part of this battle for something better. And he just smiled and looked at me, and that smile and that look were enough for me to know he knew exactly what I was talking about. And he said, I understand exactly what you're talking about, and I know exactly how you feel, and a lot of us do, and you're going to find a lot more people who do in your lifetime. And I have. Now, among those people, I found a lot who take this to heart. They take it very egotistically. They feel like they are the ones who are aware and that the rest of the world is asleep. And rather than try to help others out, as you would help a child learn, they choose to insult other people for what they don't know. In this way, we have a lot of folks who are pushing their views on others without any backing whatsoever for those folks to understand where this person has clout or where they're getting their ideas. They just assume everyone should just know what they know. This isn't production, folks. This isn't progress. This isn't how we move forward, by picking on others. If we need to prop our own egos up in order to make ourselves feel better by telling others then we're no better off than they are. And it seems like we haven't learned anything at all. And one of the hardest things I've found about doing this type of research, this type of work, is that while it comes from the heart, one still has to finance his life. So a lot of these truth tellers end up having to ask the public for money or for donations. And at what point does it become a business? And at what point are people forced to produce information because of obligations, financial obligations? So sometimes we're stuck as people who want to go and help others and teach others. Yet on one hand, we don't know if what we have to teach is really worthy. On the other hand, we don't know how we're going to finance doing so. I have a family to feed. I have a life to live. I can't just go out full time and learn about society. Although I do dedicate most of my extra waking hours to doing just that. I've seen a breakthrough in internet behavior and the usefulness of the internet. And I have hope that we can organize through the internet in order to make people more aware. Forming groups, large groups, will never be the solution to the problem. Groups only allow themselves to be infiltrated by others who would like to bring them down. There are even stories of sewing circles being infiltrated by government agencies so they can keep the subject off of politics. They don't want us talking about these things. They don't want us talking about the problems of society, because there are a few who are very happy with the way things are going. But the most important thing that I've learned in my studies is this is nothing new. And it was only my recent studies into Greek history that really opened my eyes as to how close we are to that civilization and all civilizations that have risen and fallen before us. We are the new Atlantis. We are the new empire. The United States is the center of the world at the moment, and this is quickly changing. Whether or not there's a one-world government in the works or not is not the question. The question is, how would they ever implicate such a thing? There's too much chaos. There's too much disorder in the world. Many of the people in charge would like you to think that they have more power than they really do. They would like you to think that you're always being watched. They would like you to think that if you speak your mind, you're going to be hunted down and taken out. That's just their fear, people. Their fear that we're on the precipice of opening each other's eyes to something beyond this society. Not that we will rise up and fight. Not that we will rise up and draw blood. But rather that we will step back and opt out of many of the services that we deem necessary for life. We're in this together. We're in this as a team. But to think that people are always going to think along the same lines is ridiculous. We're going to have to accept each other's differences, embrace who we are, embrace who our neighbors are, and find the common ground, the common thread, the thing that keeps us all down: ignorance. Yet no amount of education in the world can give a person a life experience. So we need each other. We need all of us. So let's do it, people. Let's do it. Can somebody tell me how to do it again?